we can add to our discussion about production function and diminishing returns and so on, also looking at the average product. So in our example here, we have just a general production function and then the data from the PowerPoint that we looked at in class. What I'm going to add to this, or what I want to point out, is that if you look, the typical worker's product or production changes. So the first person adds 7 units, the second person 13, the third person 18, 24, so on and so forth. So each person has a different effect on production. So the question becomes, what does the typical person have, or what effect does the typical worker have on production, what we would call what is average product? So I've added that into this chart here, and now we can see each worker's average product. And note that the average product also is different as we consider more people. What is the difference between average and total in this case? Or, I'm sorry, average and marginal. In the marginal product, we're really just saying when we add this next worker in, what happens to the total product that's made. So in this case, the total product grows by 13, and that's where marginal product comes from. But now when we talk about average, we're saying, well, what does the typical worker produce? Well, so we have 2 workers, and each worker has produced 20 units. So on average, the typical worker is producing 10 units. Let's take a look at these on the graph. First, we'll draw the marginal product curve as we've done before. So marginal product rising for a while, falling, and then becoming negative about where, well, it should become negative exactly where the production function starts to decline. So that's our marginal product. And we can also look at our average product curve. Now our average product curve behaves similarly. It increases and then decreases. It's never negative though, and it doesn't have quite as steep a change as the marginal product does. So our average product curve would look something like this. And once it intersects the marginal product curve, it would start to fall, because when we have a relationship between an average and a marginal, then whether we're talking about product or cost or anything else, the behavior is always the same. Whenever the marginal is greater than the average, as is the case here to here, so in this whole range, the marginal product is above the average product. In that case, average product is rising. Once the marginal product curve crosses the average product curve and starts to fall, or is below it, average product starts to fall as well. The reason is that when you add one more to an average, if, for example, if you add one more number to the average that's greater than the average, well, mathematically then if you refigure the average with that higher number, the average has to rise. If you add a number to a group of numbers that's smaller than the average and recalculate your average, then the average has to fall. And so that's all that happens as we move along here. Looking at our chart, for example, as once the marginal product is smaller than the average product, so for example, in this case, marginal product is greater than the average product, and you can see that the average product increased. When we went from the 7th to the 8th worker and the marginal product was only 9 units, we can see that the average product started to fall. And so long as average product was less than the marginal product, we saw the marginal product decreasing.